You know, with all the music Marvel uses in this show, I'm sure they wanted to use X Gon Give It To You. They really wanted to, guys, but they couldn't. Welcome, my beautiful geekies, to the review for Luke Cage. Right now, Season 1 is on Netflix. I just binge-watched this series since yesterday, Force Friday, and of course, this review will contain spoilers, so please watch this show from the MCU, from the Netflix show, and then come back so we can discuss this series in full. And let's start with Mike Colter, our main star, our Luke Cage. This guy is so good. This guy is super charismatic, not only as an actor, but as the personality of Luke Cage. He embodies the character, both as a person and as the hero type that he is, so well. And he does the simplest things with his look and with a smile and with his body language that just really captures you as an audience member. He does the simplest things and bam, you're hooked on the character. The guy is super likable. He's super intense. He goes through so many levels, so many emotion. He finds himself in the hardest situations. He finds himself trapped against the side of the law and against the unlawful, and he still fights to get out of that. He fights to reclaim his good name and to reclaim vengeance for Harlem, because that's the place he loves. And he's also trying to run from his previous life, of course, as Carl Lucas, and the man he was before he was turning to the unbreakable skin dude we know and love. It really brings so many levels to the story. I love the episode that we have the flashback with him in prison and then him getting his powers. And then when he loses his powers against a Judah bullet from Diamondback, he goes through another level of conflict against his character, something more that his character has to overcome, and he plays that all so well. Mike Colter was unbelievably good in this series. I love this guy. I couldn't have loved this guy more than I did on this show, and he is so good. I love the nods that we get to the character in his classic look. I love how well he integrated into modern day society, how well they implanted the series to modern day instead of being in the 70s, and I love the message that he brings. I love how big and how good of a role model this guy is. I mean, independently of this being a superhero show, just as a character, Luke Cage from the Marvel TV shows is the best role model you could have. And I love that he can play both the person and the badass, ruthless brawler street fighter that gives all these speeches and just wants to save his city, save his people, save the people he loves, and protect his own. And I love that about this character. Now let's talk about the biggest surprise in the show, and that is Misty Knight, played by Simone Missick. I love this woman. She is full of sass, full of power. She's strong-willed, strong-minded. I love the way they use her visual power for her to investigate and to find out clues about what is happening around her. I love that she doesn't know Luke Cage at all. I love that these characters are just meeting up. I love that she doesn't end up with Luke Cage, although we'll talk about that a little bit later. And I love just the way she was integrated on the show. She was just a detective. She didn't need to be Misty Knight, that character we know and love from the comics, to be awesome. She was a detective. She was Misty Knight. She was this character we knew, but she didn't depend on that. She did things to make us love. She has a great character arc. She is full of depth, both as a character and as a performer. I love all the things she goes through in this show. The way she finds herself against the law that she herself is a part of. I love that she is against Luke Cage for most of the show. I love that when she finds out the truth about Luke Cage, she still is conflicted about believing him. And I love the relationship they created. I love that first time they meet, don't get me wrong. And I love just the way they kept the surprise on coming to us. Misty Knight was an unbelievable character in this show. I love the way she's shot around, just like Luke Cage, who I forgot to speak about. I love the way they shot around Luke Cage, always showing him as this imposing man, always standing tall over everyone else. And Misty Knight, in a psychological sense, was the same way. Even when she was found between a rock and a hard place, I always love like she was shot as she was standing tall, like she would find a way out of this predicament that she was in. I love both these characters. They go through so much. They are all well portrayed. They have amazing character arcs in the show, and they represent so much of what the story is, of where the location is. I love these characters and these actors. I want to see a whole lot more of them. Let's talk about Cottonmouth, played by Mahershala Ali. This guy was unbelievably good. I mean, unbelievably good. He was psychological, he was demented, he was sickening, he was vicious, violent, he didn't take no shits from anyone. I loved how he always wanted more and more and more and more power. He wasn't tiring enough getting any more money, more power, of always controlling everything and everyone. This character was ruthless. I love this villain. And then we come to episode 6 or 7, I think, where they kill him off. I had a huge problem with that, because that was the episode where we find out his backstory. Just like in the first season of Daredevil, we find out the backstory of Kingpin, and we love him even more after that. And right now, Cottonmouth was about to become the new best villain in the MCU. I was watching this show and I was like, this guy, is he being better than Kilgrave, played by David Tennant? That is not possible. Turns out it wasn't, but it wasn't because of his fault. It was the way they written him out of the show and the who they replaced him with. I have to commend Mahershala Ali on his performance, on his character, because he was so good. Such a great parallel and opposite at the same time to Luke Cage, because he was a friend of Pop's as well. He grew up with Pop on the streets, and you see both the relationship that Luke Cage and Cottonmouth had with Pop. And you see a lot of Luke Cage on Cottonmouth and the other way around as well. Both these characters complete each other in a very unique way that you haven't quite seen before in any Marvel show, Marvel movie, or any other movie or show at all. And I love the dichotomy between the two characters. I love their dialogue. I love the way they portray the hate for each other. Cottonmouth was an unbelievably good villain. And Dan was killed off by what was being, at that point, the weakest character on this show, and that was his cousin Mariah Hillard, played by Alfred Woodard. I like at the beginning how they played around with Shades, who was a great character who at first seemed like to be just another thug working for Cottonmouth, and then he had much more layers than you initially thought. But then Mariah just becomes this weak-minded, always needing anyone else to do things for her character, who can't be on her own, who can't get by on her own, and you just don't believe that she is this psychotic person that shows up when she explodes and she kills Cottonmouth. And when you have her backstory, it kind of works well for the first episode after she kills Cottonmouth, when you kind of analyze her character and her evolution and her progressions along with Shades. But then she just kind of dwells out of the show for a bit, and when she comes back, you see that she can't do anything by herself. And the show ends with her, of course, kissing Shades, because she can't be by her own. She needs Shades, otherwise she won't get by, my friends. But now let's go back to some positives and talk about Diamondback. This guy came very late in the show, 2 episodes I think after Cottonmouth was dead, and he stole it. This guy was unbelievably good. Unbelievably good. I know I've said that word a lot today, but when Luke Cage does things right, it does things right. Diamondback was such a whole new level that was brought to the show. When he reveals to Luke Cage that he is his brother, and then you find out all the story, and then you have even more flashbacks that in these Netflix shows work so well. He was another great parallel and opposite at the same time to Luke Cage, but in a very different way than Cottonmouth was. You find out their relationship with prison from both their perspectives. You find out how they grew up, both their perspectives, and you find out the hate for each other doesn't quite come from the same place, but is justified. You understand why this guy hates Luke Cage so much. And the guy who played him, I apologize for not remembering his name, but he is so freaking good. The guy dominates Luke Cage for most of his time in the show, and come the end of the show, you see him completely beaten up after that awesome fight they had at the last episode. He's completely broken up, and then you see him laying on a bed, completely trapped without being able to move. And then you see the doctor is treating him is the doctor who treated Luke Cage, who after Luke Cage had gone out and recuperated his powers, he still had the hard drive with all the info that he needed. So now we can expect Diamondback to have some superpowers if he does show up in a second season to Luke Cage, if Luke Cage does get a second season. Let's talk about the integration of Claire on the show. I love Claire. I think we all love Claire. We have no problems with Claire. She is the one connecting tissue with the Defender series, the Netflix shows in general. But I find Claire's involvement in the show by the end to be a little too forced. She kind of references her lawyer friend a bit too much. And look, I am the one guy probably who doesn't mind the references to the MCU. Both in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and these Netflix shows, I want as much MCU references as we can get, and I won't get tired of them in any way, except when they kind of get repeated. She references Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, her lawyer friend, over and over and over and over again, saying exactly the same words, doing exactly the same thing. When they referenced Iron Man or Thor or Hulk or the incident, it worked. They always used different ways of saying such, and it worked because these people will talk about it. They're from New York. They will talk about when their city got destroyed by aliens and they were saved by a guy wearing the American flag, a blonde gorgeous man flying with a hammer, a man in an armor who is Tony Stark, by the way, and everyone knows it, and a big gigantic green monster. They will talk about it forever and ever and ever. Even if we get an MCU show without the Avengers, I'm sure they will still talk about that. I really enjoyed the character and how she involved herself in this show, how she came in, how she went out. I didn't like that she was kind of involved with Luke Cage right now because she was involved with Matt, and then we see Luke Cage involved with Jessica after being forced to break up with his wife because she's just dead, and now we see him with Claire, and so I'm just thinking that these Defenders won't get in a big gigantic orgy, so why do all these interconnected relationship and everyone has kissed each other and everyone has gone to bed with each other? I just don't get it. It's a really small thing, but it really bothered me, and I'm not the guy who usually gets bothered with these relationship kind of stuff in superhero shows or movies. All the characters were great in general except for a couple of exceptions on Claire's arc as a character and her involvement, and Alfre Woodard character in a whole. Her performance is great, don't get me wrong, just the character is really, really weak. But now let's talk about the world of Luke Cage. Harlem as a whole is so well transported into this, and it feels so real. I know I said that about Jessica Jones, about Daredevil, but here, the superhero aspect of the show really plays a very minor role. It's really non-present most of the time. Sure, Luke Cage has super strength, but that is like the most basic superpower you can come up with. And for most of the show, he doesn't really use it all the time. Sure, he's invulnerable, but he just smacks a person with a punch in the face, and that's it. I love how the fights in this show are very street-like. They're not doing acrobatics, they're not doing martial arts type of stuff. They're just punching and kicking each other out and smashing each other against walls or the floor, and I love that. They're very different, they're very brutal, they're very realistic, they're very quick-paced. Boom, if I punch you the right way, it's over, son, and that's how it happens in the streets. But Harlem as a whole, the construction of the city, the way they shoot around it, the people that live in that world, how they are affected by what is happening, how they are trying to get away, how they're trying to stick around to fight for their city, the people who fight against Luke Cage, the people who defend Luke Cage, the people who believe he's guilty, the people who believe he's innocent. Every person helps the world building in this show, and you guys know I love world building, and the world building in Luke Cage is very excellent. This was something that I was not expecting to like because in these shows it's pretty obvious how they're gonna use that, but it works. Daredevil with the red, Jessica Jones with the purple, Luke Cage with the yellow. The yellows on this show are so beautiful to look at. The cinematography is pitch perfect for this show. It seems gritty at the same time that it seems sophisticated. It seems haunting at the same time that it can help the color, the shot to be funny. And I love how it can integrate all those tones just with one background color. One color that can be present in a minimal detail, like in a lamp or just a painting on the wall. I love the way they shoot around characters, the way they shoot this world, the way they shoot fight scenes. This show is perfectly shot in ways that connects the story together, in ways that it involves the characters, in ways that it helps tell, the type of story they are telling. This is an action crime drama, my friends, that you should really watch. Luke Cage is a great show. If you ask me, yes, Luke Cage is probably my least favorite Marvel show on Netflix, but that's just like saying that Star Wars A New Hope is my least favorite Star Wars movie from the original trilogy. I love them all. This show has a really weak villain. It has some troubles here and there with references that are just a little too repetitive, and it has a hard time finding its spot, but I love how the villains always are trying to get at each other. They're always one step ahead of each other and always trying to play the game with each other. They're always making everyone else feel like pawns, and I love that gameplay that the villains have mentally and physically. I love that everyone is trying always to get the best out of each other and always trying to come up on top. All these villains are great in their search and thirst for power. I love the villains in the show, except of course for this one lady. She can be redeemed in the second season. I hope get a little bit more, although it will be hard in a writing sense because they've shown and defined this character for being very weak-minded and very weak in general, very dependent on other people to fail or to help her out. So I'm just hoping they can do it. It has this problem, certainly, more problems than I was expecting that jumped out at me, but this has phenomenal world building. This show moves really slow at times, but it always and always keeps on building its characters, its world, its story, always coming up with new things to go on this show that don't feel forced in, that feel organic, because you can binge this. This is a 13-hour movie that you will deeply enjoy. Another great addition to the Marvel Netflix shows. Luke Cage is very different from any other thing that you've seen from Marvel until now, and it's a very welcome member to the MCU, and definitely the guy who should be leading the Defenders when the show comes out. Luke Cage, it's fun, it's greedy, it's very emotional, the characters are great, the world is great, the fights are great, the music is great. I don't like rap. I have no problems telling you guys that. In this show, I want to hear nothing but rap on the background. And I can't wait to download this soundtrack because I'm always going to be thanking Luke Cage. All in all, guys, I've repeated myself enough. Watch it. Luke Cage is a great addition to the MCU. A character I do hope to see in Infinity Wars. And Luke Cage definitely gets an Amazeballs rating. Sweet Christmas! What did you guys think of Luke Cage, beautiful geekies? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Are you a fan of the character from the comics? Are you a fan of this world of Harlem that they've built on this show? Let me know all that in the comments below. And also, speaking of Marvel, let me know your questions for my Doc Strange Q&A with a hashtag DocStrangeQ&A in the comments, and ask me how many questions you want about anything you want. Doesn't have to be about Marvel. Anything you want in the comments. You have that power, and if you do, you might win something on that giveaway. I got something very special coming out on Wednesday, and I hope you guys enjoy that after my masterminds and my possibly Girl on the Train reviews are up. And if you want to stay tuned for that and you haven't joined the beautiful geeky community, click subscribe and join us so we can be geeky united! My beautiful geekies, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy Luke Cage, I hope you enjoyed this review, and I love you all so much. You know that. Stay beautiful, stay geeky, cheers!